J-Tech Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. It's America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. And now, here are your hosts, Tom Bastek and Mike Jacobs.
And welcome in episode number 16 of America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. It's the game show, guys. I'm Tom Bastek.
I'm Mike Jacobs. Thanks again for everybody rejoining us again this week. Episode 16 coming at you hot. We are doing Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Yeah, I'm excited. This is one that came out of nowhere for me when we were talking, I guess, a couple of weeks back about what some of our upcoming episodes would be. And I was like, oh, dude, I remember that.
Well, what's funny is since you brought it up, I think that I'm amazed that I just said it right now without singing the theme song, because it has been stuck in my head for weeks. I'm like singing it to my dogs, just like humming it as I'm walking around the house and doing laundry and stuff. I can't get it out of my head.
Well, Rockapella thanks you for that.
Yeah, well, I thank them.
All right. Well, last week, a very successful Hollywood Squares. A lot of you jumped on board. We didn't get a lot of feedback necessarily, but tons of listens up front for that one. Really proud of how well that did.
Yeah, people are excited to hear about the show. I was fully expecting a lot of what is wrong with yous with my low rating of that show. Didn't hear anything, so I don't know if people agree or if they're just holding their tongues or what. But hey, I mean, either way, I'm sticking to my word.
But your rating is fair for what you rated it on and what you like about it. It's fair. Well, I also love the fact that we came up with game and show.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I think we've kind of settled into our roles of how we're analyzing these, like you say, the game aspect versus the show aspect. So I feel that if I convinced you, at least I presented my argument in a sound and logical way, which is always my goal. I don't want to trash anything. I'm simply giving my opinion.
I get it. I don't want to trash anything either, but I have to tell you about my tabletop Plinko game that I got for my birthday last week.
Wait, you're going to trash this?
I'm not going to trash it. I just said I don't want to trash it.
You don't want to means you're going to, but against your will or something?
So, just two quick things I want to mention about it for those of you who are maybe thinking about buying a Plinko game. And I don't want to stifle the sales of this game by any means, because if this sells well, which apparently it is, my wife got the last one on the shelf. And, well, we didn't actually go in. She bought it online. But she got the last one at that store online. There's a couple of things that you have to be forewarned about going in. The first thing is that the Plinko chips fall off the board.
Oh, like forward?
So the board is in two pieces. There's a top piece to the board and a bottom piece to the board. And where they meet, it's cardboard, and it's not well supported behind the cardboard. There's plastic on the front of the cardboard. There's plastic on the back of the cardboard that you pin together with a bunch of wing nuts. But where the cardboard actually sits, where the pieces fall down, where the Plinko chips fall down, there's a little lip there. Now you can kind of bend the cardboard and get it to kind of line up, but it hits that gap and it just shoots out and falls away from the board. Sometimes it doesn't even get that far and it falls away from the board.
Interesting.
Now, in all fairness, Christian had a buddy who came up with a great way around that, and that is to take these hair gel kind of, the hair wraps, the clear hair wraps. I say gel, but they're clear, like a hairband.
Okay.
And you use those and wrap them around triangles, like three pegs all the way down the board. He got like 2 bags of them and did it. He showed me a picture of it. It looks amazing. It's very cool. If you think about it, the real Plinko board has a piece of plexi on the front of it, so that does not happen.
That is what I fully expected this to have. To me, you don't make this product without that plexiglass frontispiece.
Thank you so much for saying that. I felt the same way. So that's the first problem I have with it.
That's a big flaw in my eyes, to be honest with you.
Okay, so maybe in round number 2 of this production, hopefully they sell out the first one. On the second one, they have some sort of clear front to it. I don't know. The second thing is that they have some really cool pricing games in these cards. And what you do is you play the pricing games on the cards with your group of people, and everybody gets 5 questions. So each person has the opportunity to answer 5 questions. So you have a chance of winning 5 Plinko chips, just like in the real game.
Gotcha.
A lot of those questions are all play, which all play, has been around for years, but with two people, it's tough to play an all play when one person is asking the question.
Sure, that's true.
So to me, there should be less all plays, or all plays should be separate where you can incorporate them in if you're playing with two or more or three or more.
That's a pretty common thing in board games where the deck of cards that comes with the game will be labeled each card, and then the setup will be like, if you're playing two people, include cards with this symbol or whatever, and three people use this and this symbol or whatever. And so the game naturally scales to the amount of people that you're playing with.
Yeah. So that's something that I would like. The other thing is that the deck is small. It's maybe 50 cards. And they're two-sided, but you're going to go through that in a heartbeat. And the problem is that, as well as I do, it's very easy to remember, I've had that tumbler before. That's definitely $42 and not $24.
Yes. For sure. Well, and that part of it doesn't necessarily bother me, because this is one of those games that like begs for homebrewing,
Absolutely.
Make up your own rules of how to get the things. And, even if you're, into adult beverages, make a drinking game out of it, something like that. That's totally fine. To me, though, the fact that plexiglass front is missing, I don't know. It makes everything else seems upset. Like, I'm not going to buy it now, I think. And I don't want to stifle the sales either, or talk bad about any product, but that really is a deal breaker for me. I would like to see if you could post on our site the picture that you're talking about of
Sure.
the homebrew of how to kind of get around that. I'm having a tough time sort of
Picturing
visualizing it in my
Yeah.
mind. Yeah, so I'd like to see that.
Well, I'll go ahead and
there.
post that. Anyway, so that's all I've got on Plinko. I just wanted to mention that really quick because it does really fit into this. And, me wanting to beef up my home games versions of game shows, that was my first purchase since we started this wonderful game show.
Well, speaking of first purchases, my first purchase arrived in the mail the other day, which was the cassette tape that I talked about, the soundtrack to American Gladiators.
Nice.
Yeah, it is.
Is it as bad as I think it is?
Yeah, it's exactly what you think it is. Things I did not expect. The songs are all mixed together, so it like flows from the
Really, like
American...
a DJ set.
Yeah, exactly. And then like interspersed throughout is the I've forgotten the name of the guy, and I wish I had the tape on me to read it, but the announcer from the show doing more wrestlery type things like lasers coming to get you and stuff like that. Which to me, it feels way more wrestling. Like this feels more like a wrestling thing than an American Gladiators thing to me for that reason. But
wow.
It's still fun. And it's also like sort of kickstarted this new collection I'm going to try to do of game show soundtracks. Millionaire has one apparently. And as we'll talk about it a little bit later, but Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego has a couple.
Excellent. Well, one last bit of housekeeping and then we'll get into the news with Christian. Mike, you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. The game show guys are diversifying.
Yes.
We are offering our services as game show hosts, trivia hosts for virtual events, team trivia, that sort of thing. We offer a number of different games and events that we can do, and we're getting our ducks in a row for the official website and all that kind of stuff. But hire us. We are open to freelance gigs.
All right, so virtual games are in right now, and everybody seems to be doing them. If you or your corporation are interested in hiring us, just go to tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com/hire us, and we'll get in touch with you. All right, you ready for the news, Michael?
I am ready for the news.
Light up your cigarette, crack open a beer, and put the kiddos to bed. From chaos around the world to carnage in your very own front yard, it's time for the news.
Thank you very much. This is the news brought to you by BuzzerBlog.com. American reruns of Taskmaster have received a new lease on life. After canceling the imported panel show, the CW has announced that Taskmaster will instead be moving to its streaming platform CW Seed. Season 8 of the show, which sees comedians performing tasks with overwhelmingly hilarious results, will be free to view on the CW Seed app, which is available for iOS and Android devices, as well as streaming boxes like Roku and Apple TV. And we reported last week that the Sunday night broadcast premiere of Taskmaster managed a 0.1 rating, prompting its immediate removal from the CW schedule. But I'm glad to see it's getting another chance, even if it's on a streaming platform.
Right, at least it's getting something. But honestly, like, God, this sounds so like snobbish, maybe. But we kind of touched on this last time we talked about this. But why does the CW have this show? Why does how does that happen? Why does not a reputable network have this show?
Well, it's not a good fit for the network, but at the same time, I feel like the CW depends so much on series where you have to get a bunch of people in a studio together, and especially this year, that's been really hard for a lot of networks to do. So I applaud them for thinking outside the box, and kind of reaching out and grabbing something that may attract an audience. I'm really still kind of pissed off that it didn't work out, but I'm glad to see it's still getting some play.
All right, Krista, what else you got?
Well, board game fans will soon be able to avoid the whammy from their tabletop. GameStar, a publisher which specializes in board games that combine traditional gaming materials with companion digital experiences, announced their plans to release a Press Your Luck board game. No retail price or release date has been shared yet, but the game has been confirmed to employ a companion big board app for iPhone, as well as include a plush whammy doll.
Oh, wow.
We're getting a toy whammy.
Nice.
Oh my God, I am so buying this.
That's
I have
awesome.
the picture from the catalog. I'll send it to you guys. You're gonna love it.
Dude, now wait a second. Is this going to be like Plinko, where you tell us it's coming and literally like 4 days later it's on shelves?
I hope not. I bought my Plinko the day after we recorded that, and I was not expecting it to be there.
Jenny got me mine for my birthday this past weekend and literally grabbed the last one off the shelf.
Oh, wow.
That's encouraging. I'm glad it's selling, because things like that tend to not sell very well, but Plinko is fun, so it has that going for it.
Well, whammies are not fun?
Oh, whammies are more fun. In my mind, and I'm going to go on a quick tangent, Press Your Luck is the perfect game show. It's everything. It's exciting. It has money. It has lights. It has a cartoon. It's awesome.
It also has a terrible reboot right now. Oh.
Ooh.
Oh, do you not like the reboot?
I'm having a hard time with it.
Well,
a hard time. It's one of my favorite games of all time, Christian, and I'm having a hard time with it.
It is more difficult for me to watch than the original, of course, because you're not going to do it complete justice, but I applaud the effort that they're putting into it. I also like that they included a bonus round, but they were smart enough to make it the second half of the show. So if you're a purist, you can just watch the first half. There's an episode of Press Your Luck without a weird half-hour-long bonus round at the end of it. I appreciate that.
Huh. Mike, we've cut you off 3 times. What's your thoughts on all this?
No, you haven't cut me off at all. I've just been listening. That's a pretty good point that Christian just brought up there. I never really thought of it that way, but yeah, that is pretty clever show planning. I like that.
Wow. Well, that just made my whole week. Speaking of weeks, how about this week in game shows?
Well, this week in game show history, it's a big one. We're going to 1999, and it's the premiere of a show that will inform at least the next decade and a half of game shows. It is the premiere, the American premiere, of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Now, Millionaire was originally a British show. It had premiered the year prior, 1998, in England, to amazing ratings, changed the landscape of TV in England. Rumor has it that when they brought it to America, the short list of hosts that they wanted to hire, Bill Cullen was on that list, and he had been dead for almost a decade at that point.
Wow.
But if he were to have been alive, that would have been the resurgence of the career of Bill Cullen in the year 1999.
Well, there you go. I wonder how Regis feels knowing that he beat out a dead man for the job.
I think he wrote about it in his book, actually. He did mention it. Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Hey, guys. Gives a new meaning to the term stiff competition. Oh!
Hey, guess what, guys? The podcast is going up this week. You know why?
Because of that joke.
We're talking about dead people.
Oh, it's a Tom episode. Yay.
Yeah! Dead people bring ratings. We talked about this in the meeting. So anyway, yeah, they got Regis to host. The rest is history. The original format for the show was called Cash Mountain, and I think it had something to do with 50 or 100 questions, and the first one's being worth $1. and just kind of adding up from there. But they refined it, turned it into the show that we know now, and a lot of the elements of game shows that you see in modern shows originated on Millionaire. The idea of a really dark set as opposed to a light set, the idea of the swirling lights and lots of incidental music, audiences sort of sitting in the round, one player playing against the house. Those are all concepts that originated from Millionaire. It changed this form of television as we know it, and you still see effects of it today. I mean, things like Deal or No Deal, things like Beat Shazam, and don't forget the lyrics, they all have that same sort of aesthetic. They all have those elements, and it's just so influential. And a really good game. It's just an unbelievable game. That was one of the first shows that you were allowed to take as long as you wanted on a question. That was part of the rule. So sometimes when you're watching the show, you don't realize that they had been sitting there pondering this question for 45 minutes. And just think of what type of host it takes to make 45 minutes of thinking in silence on television entertaining. There's nothing like it.
I truly feel, I think we covered this when we talked about Millionaire, but I think my feeling is there was game shows before Millionaire and game shows after Millionaire.
Absolutely.
I agree.
All right, Christian, this week we're doing Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? What's your take?
That is a show that I grew up with, and I loved Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. One of the things that I've learned about the show, and this might be creepy to me as a person who's interested in lost media and lost episodes of things, I find it fascinating. There is one unaired episode of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego sitting in the PBS vault marked Do Not Air. It has been confirmed that the tape exists and is marked Do Not Air. The subject, the title of it, they always had a sort of pun, was Old Lang Gone. And the idea was that the Carmen Sandiego stole the New Year's ball that year. Now the map in the bonus round was, I think it was Africa, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong on what it was, but either way, in the bonus round, a kid fell and suffered a compound fracture.
Oh.
And that's the only episode of Carmen Sandiego that they never aired. It does exist. They have it. And emails have been sent to PBS by people much more obsessive than I am. And it does exist, but it has not aired. That is the creepy Carmen Sandiego factor.
Oh, I like it. I like creepy, and I like Carmen Sandiego. It's all creepy, and it's wonderful.
Great show, though. Unbelievable show. Talk about probably one of the best educational kids game shows.
I'd agree.
They've tried to do other shows like that, but they just perfected the formula.
All right, so how about a plug for Buzzer Blog?
Of course, buzzerblog.com is the #1 game show website in the world. Whether you're looking for information on new series, returning series, casting information, buzzerblog.com is the place to come. For industry insiders, for nerds, and for anyone who listens to this podcast, if you don't already fit into one of those two categories, buzzerblog.com.
I gotta say, it's unlikely that you listen to this podcast and are not a nerd.
That's true.
That's one of those Venn diagrams that's a full circle.
If you're not a nerd, please turn off your device now. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. We appreciate you.
My pleasure. I appreciate you guys as always.
All right, that was Christian with the news. Mike, we didn't get a chance to ask him, and I should have, but he was on Millionaire.
Yes.
And I found the clip of him, and we will definitely put it on the website this week, of him doing the very beginning tease where, I guess he won on one episode, and he was coming back the next day for the remainder of the episode.
That sounds right. I believe him saying something along those lines.
Yeah, and he does the opening tease with Meredith Vieira. It's hilarious.
Oh, wow. I can't wait to see that. That's the one you sent me, that screenshot where he's got the crazy hair?
Crazy hair.
Okay, I can't wait to see this.
It is a little over the top. He almost knocks her over at one point.
Well, I trust him to do something over the top and do it well. So, I can't wait to see what they've done.
All right. When we come back, we are doing the amazing Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Amazing indeed.
Yeah. And it's 35-year anniversary. We're going to talk more about that. Coming up next.
35?
You've been listening. Yeah, 35. Can you believe that?
Oh, so old.
All right. You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast. Tell them what they've won. Hey gang, it's Mike and Tom from America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won. And we want to talk to you a little bit today about how we got started with Anchor.fm.
Yeah, it's interesting with so many podcasts out there, it's not as easy to get started as you might think. And it was a pretty daunting task at first, but during my research, I came across Anchor.fm. And boy, I tell you, it seems like the perfect solution for getting started.
You said it best, Mike. They had a way to grow the podcast. We had the opportunity to put our podcast out there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the platforms, and then make money from the beginning with minimum listenership and then grow.
Yeah, exactly. It's the perfect platform to get everything done. They've got all the tools to edit and publish and all that kind of stuff right there, straight from your phone. Even if you don't even have a computer, you can do it. And we can start small, and we'll have features to help us every step of the way.
If you're looking to get things started on your own podcast, just download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get things started.
One, two, three.
Yeah!
Move up, move it, move up, move it, move up, move it, move up. Well, she sneaks around the world, Maria to Carolina. She's a sticky finger filter from Berlin down to Belize. Take you for a ride on a snowboat to China. Tell me where in the world is
Carmen Sandiego.
there's only South Korea, baby.
There it is, the vocal stylings of rockapella.
Melodious sounds of rockapella, which, I mean, if you're anything like me at elementary school days when they made us watch this show, or I guess let us watch this show, I should say, this is where I discovered rockapella. They have a lot other than this show, obviously.
Sure.
But yeah, like I mentioned earlier, there is a cassette release out there of the soundtrack to this show, which features rockapella and several other artists doing geography-themed songs. And of course, that, to me, may be the most recognizable theme song in game show history.
It's tough. The Jeopardy theme,
Jeopardy
anybody can sing that.
For sure. That is absolutely true. For my generation, though, maybe it's just me specifically. I don't know, but it's a very iconic theme song in my world.
Well, the funny thing is, I did not grow up with the show, Mike. It was a little after me. I still watched it, but it wasn't like an intricate part of my childhood. There's not the tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwich kind of feel to this show for me.
Sure. And I definitely do have that feel for the show, though it was not literally that in this case. Because like I said, in my experience, in days of elementary school, when there, I guess, was, for whatever reason, we were watching a video instead of doing normal classwork, they would wheel in a TV sometimes, and it would be episodes of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. And that, I would say, in elementary school classes was where the majority of my viewing of this show came from.
Let's talk about the gameplay a little bit.
Let's talk about the gameplay. So we have 3 middle school contestants, which they referred to as gumshoes, not contestants, of course, after the popular term for private detective back in the day, the old gumshoe. Which, Tom, do you have a guess on where that term originates?
Gumshoe. I don't know. I mean, did someone get gum on their shoe and try to figure out where it came from, and that's where it came from?
Interesting theory. I had always thought that it was used to refer to policemen, not private detectives. So I was wrong from the get-go, but I thought it was like a cop on the beat who was out there on the streets and getting gum on his shoes because he was out there working hard.
Oh, I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Also incorrect.
Okay.
Gumshoe is a kind of shoe, and it is made from gum rubber, and they are very, very quiet shoes. So it is for private detectives who want to walk quietly. They buy gumshoes because they don't squeak when you walk, unlike many of the shoes at the time.
So not to be confused with the rubber-soled shoes that were typically worn in laboratories so that you wouldn't get shocked by electricity.
Correct. So there you go. Neat little tidbit there. So anyways, these gumshoes are typically age 10, 14, in that sort of range. Like I said, middle schoolers.
Interesting side point real quick. They typically got them this was shot in New York.
Right.
And they got a lot of those kids from area middle schools.
Oh, cool.
Like the teachers would recommend, oh yeah, Johnny's got a lot of knowledge in geography. Let's send him in for the show.
Now that's interesting because this is the thing I wanted to bring up at some point. We can do it right now.
Okay.
When I was watching this show, so many of the kids do not seem to be enthusiastic about the fact that they're on a game show.
I agree 110%.
That makes so much sense that obviously the teachers were like, you're good at geography, go be on this show. Now, I don't know what motivation a child would have to not be excited about being on a game show, especially where that sounds like a blast to me, but maybe just some kids weren't into it. But there's a kid, if you go look up the show on IMDb, and I think, Tom, you're going to post the picture as well on our page.
Sure.
There is specifically a kid that I found an episode of, and he is right square, the first picture on IMDb of it. And I think his name is Jim or Tim or something like that. Jim. And he is straight up not having a good time. He is upset that he is on this show.
Dude, they all win things. I watched 2 episodes this week, and both episodes, the people who got to the final challenge, which we'll talk about here at the end, did not win the final challenge, and both of which looked so upset about it. They were still giving really cool prizes, and they weren't happy. They were just, I was like, dude, if you didn't complete the obstacle course in Double Dare, these kids in Double Dare were freaking out that they got to do all that.
And I was thinking maybe it was because they're tired, but you're tired at the end of Double Dare too.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting.
Maybe because it's more fun to go up a big nose and pick a booger flag out than it is to run around and put police sirens on a map.
Maybe. Here's a theory. This is totally not based in anything but just the thought that occurred in my brain right now. Okay. Maybe the kids didn't know what game show they were going to be on. It was just like, hey, you get to be on a game show. Let's go down to the studio. And they're thinking oh, this is going to be Double Dare or Funhouse or some crazy big game show. And then it's educational show for PBS. And they're just bummed out.
Oh, that makes the most sense, dude. That makes total and complete sense to me.
Oh, man. That's funny.
How upset would you be if you thought Double Dare and you got Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
I mean, that's the thing is, I think even at the time, I certainly didn't like it as much as Double Dare, but I loved this show as a kid, and I very much enjoyed it watching back on it. And I would say there's definitely a part of me that would be disappointed that it wasn't what it was, or what I thought it was, rather, with being Double Dare or something like that. And there's also the idea that probably in the first 2 seasons, especially in the first season, nobody knew what it was. So in the first season, you didn't know, by the 3rd or 4th season, it's one thing to be oh, I'm get to go be on this show that I've heard about for years. Right. So yeah, I have no idea if that's the case or not, but that would be hilarious if it is. Anyways.
Continue, please. Okay, so you've gone off on that tangent there, but I wanted to get that in about those kids from middle school that were in locally.
I think that's a big piece to the puzzle for me anyways. All right, so you get these 3 gumshoes, and the chief, played famously by Lynn Thigpen. I had to listen to her say it at the end of the episode several times to make sure I did not mispronounce that. It is Thigpen. Mm-hmm. She actually played the chief in many iterations of the show. We'll get to the different versions later in the history, but she is most commonly the chief. She gives the gumshoes a briefing on what criminal has stolen what item, the sort of theme for the show, and a brief overview of what the goal of the game is.
Right.
At round 1, each player starts with 50 Acme crime bucks is what they call them. I suppose that's more flavorful than points, but it just feels awkward. Acme crime bucks? I don't know.
It flows off the host pretty well, though. You know what I'm saying?
I suppose he probably said it a lot, so he was used to it. And by the way, I want to talk about this more in the history. Greg Lee is a great host for this show.
I don't remember him from too many other things, but I definitely remember him from this.
Yeah, it's funny because I was watching it the whole time, and I was like, he feels so familiar to me, but I think it's just this show. I don't know that I would have placed him anywhere else, and I, to be honest, have not looked him up to see what else he's done. So maybe I'll find some surprise later, and I'll check back in when we do our housekeeping at the beginning of the show.
Cool.
So anyways, he and various other actors and comedians and whatnot do these comedic bits, the series of comedic bits throughout the first round. When I watched this as a child, it did not feel as hectic to me as when I rewatched it for this episode. There is a lot going on in this first round, to the point where I almost felt like it was an hour-long show, and the first round was a half hour because they put so much into it. And basically the idea is these sketches contain sort of clues and hints and whatnot regarding a specific location of where the thief is currently hiding with the loot that they've stolen. Some examples include the popular one was the lightning round, which was just trivia questions, really. The phone tap was one where you overhear a conversation between Carmen Sandiego and that week's thief, where they discuss where the thief is going to and mention like landmarks or something like that. The chase, which I thought was maybe one of my favorite ones, where they're shown a map of a specific area of the world, and like in rapid succession, a country is highlighted and there's a quick trivia question, which basically is just like, what's this country? What's the capital? What's the river nearby? Things like that. And so over the course of these rounds, the contestants are either answering the questions, or for most of them, such as the lightning round and that sort of thing, the different skits, contestants are choosing their answers and like holding up at the, backside of their answer. And once all three are ready, they reveal them at the same time. And then each correct answer gets the gumshoe 10 more crime bucks. And, going back to my point of a lot in the first round, like I feel like I just described a lot, and that's only the tip of the iceberg, and we're not even to the end of round one yet.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a lot, man. It's hectic, which is interesting because for so much of it, so much content as there is, it's not a lot of questions. They're really only like 5 or 6 questions over the course of all this stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing that I was like kind of a little like bummed about going back and watching it. I mean, I guess when I was watching it when I was younger, the show part is really good. And you know me, I like the show. But there seems like so much show here that, I mean, some of it didn't even have anything to do with the show.
The chief's office was just a sketch. And like sometimes it was to, I guess, give the bump of, what they're going to win for the trip to anywhere in the U.S. We'll talk about in a minute. Or the mail-in contest that you could do to get the T-shirt. But for the most part, it didn't further the game or the plot or anything. It was just a sketch. And now, to their credit, they were pretty well-written sketches. I thought they did a pretty good job, especially for a PBS show. The audience didn't seem to dig them too much. Maybe the kids weren't just they wanted to see more game show, because the kids were into the game show part of it, but they did not. Like every episode, the sketches, it's just crickets from the audience. Anyways, so again, end of round one happens by, again, the players are shown a map with 3 possible locations. And so like the general region of the world that your final question is going to be in. And the kids get to wager anywhere from 0 to 50 as long as it's in increments of 10. And during this part, again, Rockapella comes in with just gloriously wonderful thinking music and how much you gonna risk, yeah. It's great. I can't even do him justice, but
the great thing is and that's something I really appreciate, and we don't see it at all in any game show anymore, is having that kind of like live like input, what I'm saying? Like live musical accompaniment. I mean,
and it's live. They are actually singing that on stage. It's not like they're faking to a soundtrack or something. That's all real.
They had that when we did remote control. They had the guy that was sitting in the back there, what his name, Steve or whatever, that was playing on the keyboard and had a guitar. Like the musical accompaniment thing has been really lost in going forward now in the present.
Well, and as you and I know, like in musical improv, the music is as much a player as anyone on stage. And I totally am with you that this kind of concept of live accompaniment, I think is a big bummer.
Well, it shows me that there's an opening there.
Yeah,
if someone wants to bring a game show back that has some sort of live accompaniment, they're going to fill a hole.
Yep. So, anyways, with this wagering, if you get the question right, obviously you get that many points. If you get the question wrong, you lose that many points. And the question is just a general trivia question with one of the 3 locations that they showed beforehand. And at the end of this round, whoever has the lowest score is eliminated from the show. But they get, as a parting gift, I'm having difficulty remembering any other show where they have packaged and branded their parting gift. But they call it the Acme CrimeNet Travel Kit, which consisted of like an atlas, a watch, a t-shirt, a subscription to the National Geographic magazine, a basketball that looks like a globe.
Yeah.
I think there's a backpack in there, probably a compass or something. You get all sorts of cool little stuff. And it's like a little go fight crime with Carmen Sandiego kit. It's awesome.
Yeah, like even when I was talking about like the kids that won the parting gifts from the final round, their stuff was even branded. Like the little television that girl won was the Acme TV. Handheld television.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, like they really went all out to brand this stuff for the show, based on the game of who won, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego.
Yep. So now we go into round 2. Round 2 is also lengthy in the description.
That was all just round 1.
Yes, sir. We are 1/3 of the way through the show. But the rest of the game happens pretty quickly. But round 2, I think, is maybe a little long in the explanation. But the gameplay of it is actually pretty quick. So the way this works is the chief gives an in-depth sort of description with, again, like sightseeing tips and culture information about the answer from the last question of the first round, just giving more in-depth information about this location. And then so the gumshoes are taken to a board that have 15 little sort of placards on them, all labeled with locations and things that have been shown in the description that the chief gave. Now, this part does not really involve much knowing of trivia. It's really just like a game of memory, but they'll choose a location or whatever on the board, and it will flip over, revealing either footprints showing that nothing's there, and then the 3 items that the contestants have to find, which is the loot, the warrant, and the crook. And they have to get them in that order. So if you start your turn and you find the warrant first, you get another turn. But you just know where the warrant is. You still have to find the loot. So, then you get the loot and then you know where the warrant is, so you can go there, and then hopefully you get the criminal. First player to get all 3 of those in that order will win. And of course, the loser is eliminated. They also get the Acme CrimeNet Travel Kit, as well as a couple other bonus prizes, like you said, that television and things like that. And then the winner gets to pull the big green chain handle, which makes a big foghorn sound, or maybe they mix up the sound, I'm not exactly sure, but then shows the animation of the criminal being caught behind bars and confetti falls down, and congratulations to them, they have won. The gumshoe now moves on to the final round, which to me, like there's a lot of difficult stuff in the game. This to me is the most difficult. I'm not good at geography to begin with, but this is so hard. So they get 1 of 5 maps. It's either North America, which I believe later was shrunk to be just the United States, South America, Africa, Europe, or Asia. Based on which one of those maps, they're shown a number of different locations. I believe it's 13 total that they're shown. So like if it's Africa, you get 13 countries in Africa. If it's the US, you probably get 13 states. Along those lines. And then the contestant gets 45 seconds, which is not long. And the host then reads the locations. There's no trivia really of figuring it out. You just have to remember where on the map they are. So then the host would say, Zanzibar. And so you got to go grab this little like beacon thing and go and place it on the map that's in front of you. It's literally a giant map on the floor of the studio. And you place this beacon on where you believe Zanzibar to be. If it's correct, the beacon lights up and a siren goes off and you're good. Otherwise, you get this little like, uh-oh, try again sound. And you can place the beacon 1 more time. They don't specifically say that you can't place it more than twice, but every time they place it and it's wrong. The host says, try again. They tried again. He's like, all right, come on back. And so I think it's just you get 2 chances at it and then you try again. Over the course of this madness of running back and forth, if you get 8 of these correct, originally it was 7 in the first season, but then they upped it to 8 in subsequent seasons. If you get 8 of these correct, you will capture Carmen Sandiego and win the ultimate prize of the game, which is a trip to anywhere in the continental U.S. or contiguous U.S., as I think we've said on a previous episode.
Yeah.
And before this final round starts, there is another excellent rockapella interlude about while the contestant writes down on a sheet of paper where they want to go. And it's the same song as the How Much You Gonna Risk song, but this time they just sing, what is it? Where do you want to go? Oh, yeah, yeah. It's great. Yeah. I don't think I've seen many kids win this final round. Like I said, it's really hard.
Yeah.
And not only is this very hard, I mean, obviously these kids are good at geography, so maybe if you get the U.S., or if it were me, if I got the U.S., I'd probably do all right. If you're giving me countries in Africa, I'm hoping I can pay attention to the summary beforehand well enough. But the problem is, and a lot of people don't think about this, the kid is looking at the map upside down because they want to show the map on camera as it is on a map for, kids in the United States educational system. And the contestant is standing at the north end of that country so that they are, I guess, upstage, as it were. And so the kid is having to look at the map in one orientation and then find these countries completely upside down. And I don't know, sometimes I'll even read things that I have written, not realizing that the piece of paper is upside down, and be like, what on earth is this moon language? It takes a second before your brain can process the fact that it even is upside down, let alone what you're actually looking at.
Right.
So yeah, I think that end round is very difficult. So again, I don't know many kids that did, but any who have, good on them. And if anyone who's listening who has been on this show, well, let us know either way. But if you've been on this show and won the final round, please get in touch with us and let us know if how difficult it actually was.
Yeah. Agreed.
And then, of course, not necessarily gameplay, but the end of this show, again, to me, the most iconic part is Rockapella's theme song. But before you get to that, every episode they yell, "Do it, Rockapella!" And I mean, there is nobody in my childhood friend group who doesn't know that and then could probably sing at least the first couple lines, if not the entirety of the song, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's cheesy.
It's cheesy, don't get me wrong, but there is there's, in addition to the cassette, there's also a blue colored 45 single of it, and I really want to get my hands on that.
That's great. All right, so that's the gameplay. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the history of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won. And welcome back, episode number 16, segment number 3 of America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won. This is Carmen Sandiego, Michael.
Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Not to be confused with Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego, which was apparently a spinoff I didn't know about until this week.
It's huge. I mean, the franchise is gigantic.
Well,
actually... Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, the franchise is absolutely gigantic, and I did know about the Where in Time computer games. So yeah, we would be remiss to talk about the history of the game show without at least touching on the rest of the franchise, particularly the Broderbund, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's got the line through the O.
Right.
The video game company. They've made the popular computer games. For me specifically, these were staples of my childhood. We talked about this briefly, and I don't remember all the details, but there was some sort of incentive in my elementary school for, during our computer class, either beating a game or like achieving some sort of goal in a game. And I remember I played Carmen Sandiego so often because they would give us the atlas for whatever version of the game it is, and you could just look up all the stuff. And of course, I'm thinking I'm cheating the system by it's like, oh, I could just look up all the answers. And it's like, no, you idiot, that's called studying. You're just getting better at it. Like, that's what the game is supposed to be doing. But yeah, I would play this game at least once a week, probably twice, because I remember the benefit was that we got some sort of extra computer class time. I don't remember if it specifically replaced another class or something like that, but yeah, we were rewarded for being good at computers, and I was certainly that.
Well, the cool thing is I've got a little video of it. I found a YouTube video of the original one, and we'll put that on the website as well. The franchise actually turns 35, as we mentioned in the very first segment today. Began in 1985. It was actually conceived in 83, but the first game came out in 85. It has created, in the course of those 35 years, 17 follow-up games.
Wow.
On all, of course, all different platforms. 7 board games, 7 book and comic book series, 4 television series, including the new one that's on Netflix right now. Yep. Of course, it's entitled Carmen Sandiego.
Yeah, the new one is, it's actually a lot more about Carmen Sandiego, and you're getting like sort of her backstory and why she turned to crime and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty interesting. I haven't watched a whole lot of it, but it's definitely interesting. If you're a fan of the franchise, I think it's a good following.
Well, and if you like Carmen as a villain, she becomes the protagonist. Basically, they basically make her more of a Robin Hood type character in this new series.
Yeah.
So she's not the big evil, mean, vile person that she was. How did you like that?
Yeah.
In the original.
Yeah,
so,
she's trying to be like a little bit more of a relatable character, I suppose.
All right, so that game, of course, spawned off eventually.
Well, into the game show that we were talking about. But here's the deal. It wasn't just... I mean, obviously there was some amount of it's a popular show, or a popular game, let's make it a game show.
Yeah.
But there was a very specific thing that happened. In 1988, National Geographic ran a survey and found that 1 in 4 Americans could not point out the Pacific Ocean on a map. Now,
there you go.
I am no good at geography, but I think I was maybe part of the educational bump that this show was trying to promote. But they were very concerned about that, so they wanted to make a show that could, appeal to everyone and help raise those, statistics. So not only are the kids watching it, but the parents are watching it with their kid and hopefully learning along. Again, I'm not very good at geography. This show seemed very difficult to me. I can point out the Pacific Ocean, so I feel like maybe I've learned some things from this show. But where they like summarize the culture and hotspots or whatever of a location, they go through it so quick. And unless you've been studying, this is not an easy show, if you ask me.
I definitely feel like it's difficult for me even now to answer some of the questions.
For sure. Yep.
But yeah, when I watched it back in the day, I was just, amazed by these kids. I was like, well, these are definitely the smartest ones in class.
Yeah, and now watching it as an adult, there's a lot of deductive reasoning that can be done to be like, all right, well, I know it's not this one, and it's probably this one, that sort of thing. But anyways, this all began out of the seed of just wanting to educate Americans, and I think that is just great. Like, the fact that something so awesome can come from what is typically seen as like boring educational PBS show, blah. Like we were talking earlier, the kids, maybe reaction to it if they didn't know. I think this is the antithesis to that, the exception to the rule, as it were. Because it's fun. It's a great show.
I agree wholeheartedly.
And so since National Geographic's survey sort of planted the seed for the idea, they sponsored a lot of the show. They did all the fact checking and making sure that the information was correct. And they provided some of the prizes. Like I said, the magazine subscription earlier was to National Geographic World Magazine. So they provided a lot of assistance in getting this show up and off the ground, which maybe the money behind them was part of why it succeeded and was able to be such a good show. We've talked before about the idea of production on a show being very important, being able to afford the sort of lofty goals of a TV show, and I think they did a very good job of that. They also had a lot of commercial sponsorship. Toyota sponsored them for several seasons, things like that.
Yeah, Delta was a very big
Yep.
sponsor. But again, it's also easier on PBS to get a lot of these sponsorships.
Very true. And also the whole viewers like you, they're getting donations from viewers.
Right.
Which again, I'm all on board with. Like I'm very glad that a show of this caliber was able to exist on what is effectively public access.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, we're not the only ones that took notice of this, to be honest with you. There are tons of celebrity guests, so many so, in fact, that I couldn't even fit it on our note sheet. So I have here a list of the full cast of the show, and I'm just going to go down and start reading off some of the names of the people who were on this show. We got Maury Povich, Tatiana Ali, James Avery, known as Uncle Phil, or maybe you know him as the voice of the Shredder on the Ninja Turtles cartoon, but he was Uncle Phil on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. LeVar Burton, Bo Diddley, Neil Patrick Harris, George Michael, Christina Ricci, Laura Dern. We're starting to Fred Rogers, Mayim Bialik, Joe Biden. Very relevant these days. Joe Biden, the Blue Man Group, Dr. Dre, David Faustino, who was Bud on Married with Children, Lou Ferrigno, the original Incredible Hulk, Daisy Fuentes, Steve Guttenberg. The list goes on and on. Dennis Miller, Gene Wilder. Keeps going after that. And also, as substitute host, which apparently only happened a handful of times, I think twice, Mark Summers from Double Dare was the substitute host for 2 episodes.
Yeah, and hey, you know what I found while going down the rabbit hole about this? Christian was talking about the episode where someone broke their arm, the Auld Lang Syne episode.
Oh, yeah, they never aired or whatever.
Right, that's one of the 2 that Mark Summers actually hosted.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so I don't know if he got paid for 2, but he only hosted 1 technically that aired.
Oh, yeah, look at that. He is credited on the IMDb page for that specific episode. He is credited as substitute host. Look at that.
There it is.
That's awesome. Well, I don't know if that's awesome. That maybe that sucks for Mark Summers, because now he's been like or hosting a show where a kid broke their arm and a show where they broke their leg.
So in 92, was he still doing Double Dare at that point?
Don't know. That's a good question.
I don't know. And anyway, that's a question for another day.
But yeah, that was all in 92, which was actually a really big year for the show overall. First and foremost, after the first season, but before the second in 92, that's when a lot of, and I putting this word in here not because I know it, but because I read it. I was like, oh, that's a really good word. I want to use it. There was a lot of geopolitical change going on in the world at that time. Primarily, of course, the breakup of the Soviet Union and Yugoslavia and all that. So that whole side of the world completely changed and rendered a lot of the stuff that happened in the first season now totally inaccurate. So starting with the second season, they started reading out a little voiceover or a disclaimer read by the chief, Lynn Thigpen, about the fact that the information is accurate at the time of the recording of the episode. And I, again, don't know geography, but I would have to imagine quite a bit has changed since those episodes. So there's probably a lot on there that's not accurate today.
Right.
Also, 92 was the year that they won their first daytime Emmy. The Emmy was in art direction, and so we got to give credit to the graphic designers Gene Mackles and Chris Pullman. They provided the animations of all the cartoon characters and whatnot. Apparently, they were on a super tight deadline and had basically nothing at their disposal initially. So they ran out and just bought like a farm of Macintoshes and just cranked this stuff out. Like I don't have information about how much they actually worked, but it sounds like they were just pulling all-nighters left and right to get this done in time, and again, winning a daytime Emmy for it in the second season, I think speaks to their abilities to pull this show off.
Yeah, I mean, it's the longest running game show on PBS, and it's also the second longest children's game show, I think, behind Double Dare, and still, in my eyes, still relevant. Like, obviously, that's why we've still got Netflix series going right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And we haven't really talked much about Greg Lee. We mentioned him a bit earlier, but I do want to, talking about the Emmys, they won tons more, and they were nominated for so many more, and not just Emmys, like all sorts of different television awards. They are a very, very decorated and nominated show. And so I got to give some props, obviously, to the chief. She is a phenomenal actress, and the fact that she's carried on through multiple iterations of the role speaks for itself. But the host, Greg Lee, he's just great in the role, and he commits to the bits and gives it his all. again, I think a lot of the problem is the audience in this show, just because they are not into the bits, and that makes them feel super awkward, even though they're pretty cleverly written and the clues are well placed. You know, they're obvious enough that you can tell it's a clue, but it's still kind of written into the dialogue well.
Yeah, I don't think it takes away from the show, though.
No, I agree. I'm saying it does not take away from the show. I feel bad for the comedy bits in this show because the audience is not as into them as I feel like they should be.
I'm sure the comedy bits feelings are not as hurt because you care about
I'm glad to hear that. But again, so well decorated and so well nominated that the show speaks for itself. It's a grand slam, especially in the terms of, you know, children's educational programming. Very few shows in that genre reach this echelon.
And you know, it spun off a whole bunch of international shows too.
Tons of versions that existed well past the U.S. version. So technically the U.S. version ended on December 22nd, 1995, and that was the end. It ran for reruns maybe a year or two after that, and then, of course, in the hearts of children like me. But the international versions kept going well into the 90s and on. As recently as 2012, there is a show in Malaysia called Where is Pompadour Joe? And it is the same show. They've just changed the name of the criminal to Pompadour Joe instead of Carmen Sandiego. I don't know exactly why, but I'm sure it has to do something with some sort of just cultural translation of Carmen Sandiego doesn't make sense to them or something like that. But yeah, Where is Pompadour Joe has existed as recently as 2012, and it is officially part of the same franchise. And like you said, there was a cartoon spinoff in the 90s that was, you know, again, if you're of my generation watching cartoons in the early 90s and late 80s, I'm sure you remember the cartoon for this. There was the spin-off game show, which I don't remember, of Wherein. And then the new show on Netflix bringing it back. I have to imagine, I didn't even look into what the most recent computer game was, but I have to imagine it's somewhat recent. This franchise is not dying. There's no more game shows in any country. That 2012 Pompadour Joe was the last one of the game shows. But I mean, I would be willing to bet a 2020 National Geographic survey would yield similar results to the initial and could spark another version of this show, and I would love to see that happen.
I think it'd be great. Another whole generation could enjoy it.
Right? That'd be great.
All right, it's time for ratings, Michael.
Yes. Let's rate it on warrants, loots, criminals, footprints. No. It's got to be what Acme Crime Bucks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm rating
How
mine
many
on
Acme Crime Books then?
My initial thought is 3 3/4, 3.75 crime bucks, but I might bump it up to a 4 just because of the wholesome factor that I discovered over the course of this show. There is no scandal. The only thing we found was that a kid broke their arm. And that's not the show's fault. Things happen. It's not like you're going to say, oh, why didn't they cancel the show? Because A, they broke their arm, they're fine. And B, Double Dare is doing way crazier stuff. There's just a solid, wholesome enjoyableness. And so I'm going to say overall 3.75, but with the heartwarming appeal that it has, I'm bumping it up to a 4.
Well, I'm going with 4 as well. I actually thought for just a second there you were going to be 3.75, and I was going to finally rate higher than you. But 4 for me, absolutely. I love the comedy bits. I love the interactive music from Rockapella. Mm-hmm. I wish there was more shows that did both of those things. And we talked about both of those things being very big on remote control, and I agree that they are also big on this show, and I would love to see more of those in the future. I'll tell you what I don't want from this show is another home version, because there's so many of them out there. No, I'm joking.
I think I actually do have one of the home versions of this show, and I don't think I realized until just this moment that it was actually a home version of the show and not just a board game of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego.
Interesting. I don't have a board game of this show, but I do will tell you that I'm going to play it later today, and if anybody else would like to, you can go to Google Earth, and they under, like, they have a little game part. If you go to the menu, they have like games and quizzes, And if you click there, you can play Where in Google Earth is Carmen Sandiego. Right there.
That's really cool. I'm going to have to
So,
check that out.
I'm going to check it out.
I'll send a link to you, Tom, for the whatever version of the board game I have, like a Board Game Geek entry for it, and you can post that up there just so folks know which one I have if they care, or what the various versions are like.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. Well, Mike, that's all the time we have for today.
All righty. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, buzzerblog.com, and thank you all our wonderful listeners.
Tune in again next time when we'll bring you the latest and greatest in the world of game shows, as well as a brand new featured show too.
And remember, you can always catch us online. Facebook is where I prefer, because I'm an old man who still uses Facebook. But you can also get Twitter, Instagram, and of course, tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com.
Please subscribe, share, like, and drop a review if you like what you heard.
And if you didn't like it, when the game show guys are on the prowl, our critics will throw in the towel.
I love it. That
Chief
may be
action
our
for
new
ya.
slogan. All right, Mike, I'll see you next week.
Bye, Tom.
You've been listening to America's favorite game show podcast, Tell Them What They've Won, a JTech audio production, copyright 2020. No part of this podcast may be reproduced by anyone without the express written consent of the creators. For more information or to contact us, please go to tellthemwhatthey'vewon.com.
All right, Tom, what'd you learn this week?
So I think I've learned, or relearned probably, that I really, really do like acapella. Like I definitely, after hearing rockapella this week, listening to the show, watching the show, I definitely went down that rabbit hole again of looking for acapella, and it just reminds me how much I miss, and we talked about this, live performance of acapella music.
Sure. It's interesting that I had almost the opposite reaction in that. I think my ultimate opinion of acapella in general is I appreciate it, but I don't like it.
Sure, I get it. What about you? What did you learn this week?
Well, I learned that despite that, I'm probably going to be spending money on supporting rockapella, because I have developed this bizarre desire to collect game show soundtracks. I got the American Gladiators one. Christian told me that Christian told me Who Wants to Be a Millionaire soundtrack exists. That's only on CD, apparently, not cassette. But there is, like I said, a cassette and a record of this, and I'm going to keep going down, as you say, the rabbit hole of game show soundtracks and see what I can find.
I think that's great, and just make sure you listen to rockapella and think of me.
Oh, absolutely, every time.
Copyright 2020, a JTech audio production.